And let's see, we'll share my screen. All right, everybody can see that? Are you ready for this exciting moment? All right, I put this PowerPoint together. Actually, somebody had requested about a year, maybe a year and a half ago. And I put this together just to show some basic components on a house. If you're new at real estate, you may not know all the terminologies, or you may not even know how things work. Where's this piece? Where's that piece? Why is it there? And this is just to kind of make you a little bit more familiar as to what's in a house and how it works. It definitely doesn't cover every component, but it covers the major ones. So hopefully you will benefit from this presentation. For the people who are new to our presentations, welcome. Who am I? My name's Dave Colasari. I am a Navy vet. Years gone by, actually 1987, I was in it. That's when I first was enlisted. But I've been a home inspector for 24 years. I'm the owner of Homesight Home Inspection Service. I'm the past president of the Wisconsin Association of Home Inspectors, past president of the National Association of Home Inspectors. I have been on the Lifetime channel speaking on behalf of the home inspection industry. And I'm also a certified national home inspector trainer for American Home Inspection Training for people who would like to become home inspectors. A little bit about our business philosophy at Homesight. We believe in truly caring about others. We believe family is the most important thing, and we say that. I just had an interview for another inspector to join our team, and he said, well, my son's very important to me, and I do help coach his softball team, and I'd like to make that, a consistent thing in the future. And I said, absolutely, we will work with you. We do believe having a strong family and a strong root. We also believe everybody deserves a home. We also believe in helping real estate agents. We are everywhere real estate agents are, whether we sponsor them, whether we help them in any capacity, train them. We like to help you succeed. We believe in more successful we are, the more people we can help. And in 2018, we are the GMER Affiliate of the Year. So a little bit about our home inspections and our business. We do way more than just a home inspection. Like I said, we've been in business for 24 years. We do supply a build facts report with all our inspections. That's something we purchase and we give to our buyer. And it basically points out what permits had been pulled on the property. Something other inspection companies do not do. We're a multi-inspection firm, which means we have a full office staff. Our office is on 92nd and Beloit, but we also have satellite offices and other real estate offices out there as well, such as a RE/MAX office, Exit Realty offices. So we find that to be very advantageous for everyone because there's a lot of questions that come up. And when you have a home inspector representing the home inspection industry, the agent is really in tune as to what's going on out there when it comes to home inspection. So we found that to be a very, very beneficial relationship and works well. All our reports are looked by a third party, quality control. So once the inspector does the report, we look at it again to make sure it makes sense before we send it out, because if we don't understand it, how is your client going to understand it? We offer a 200% satisfaction guarantee on all our inspections. Again, something our competition does not do. We provide a free 90-day home warranty with every inspection, has a $0 deductible. We give free recall alerts on all the appliances and mechanicals that we are inspecting. We have the best computer report that there is in the business, and I may be a little biased, but I feel it's hands down the best because we have used many. And this interactive report makes your job easier as well because it does have a cut and paste feature for your addendums, which makes your job easier. If you don't know where that's at, you can call us. I'll be happy to walk you through it, but it's upper right-hand corner on every home inspection report. We have very easy scheduling 24/7. You can talk to a person all the time. Free mold warranty we provide with our inspections, also a free 5-year roof warranty. We also include a free home security system and installation from ADT, a free sewer line warranty with all our inspections. That covers the sewer lines and water lines underneath the house. We provide a free Porch Home Assistant Gold subscription. That's $350 that we do partner with Porch, and we give that product to our clients for free. And it just helps them find the right contractor on any type of job, as well as taking the thought of out of owning a home. A lot of people don't know what to do when something goes wrong. So these are pretty much your advisors, and they're there for your client 24/7. It's our way of giving more to the inspection, more to the client even after the inspection. We also offer a free 1-year subscription. I'm sorry, 1-year structural warranty with our inspections. Our E&O insurance, we have a rider with our E&O insurance. So if you were to refer us, we do cover you if something in the unlikely event would go wrong. We do cover you. We acknowledge that your referral is a risk, and we try to take care of you as best as we can. Our inspection also qualifies you for an 18-month home warranty that the client can purchase for the price of $12. For the simple fact that we inspected it, you get 6 months free. And then we also have a multi-production studio that we have in-house here, and we offer to our agents that help us out. We help them out, and it's a productive space right here. That's kind of what I'm in now. And you are welcome to use this as well. It's free. If you want to do some videos, if you have a coach and your coach is telling you to get out there and do videos, come see us, talk to Jack, make an appointment, and we'll make you successful. Okay? So I see I got a couple questions here. Whoop. Where's my chat? There we go. I need one of those pre-inspected signs. I just had Brian out yesterday to do one for me. Well, Christy, thank you for the referral. Now, what signs are you talking about? We have.
On that one, so that last slide that you had.
Are you talking about this one here?
Yeah, Homesight certified, and then below it says pre-inspected there, and I see the Homesight logo.
Yes, this is if the seller purchases the 18-month home warranty for the buyer. Okay. Then you get that sign too, okay? Because it'll qualify them for 18 months for the price of 12, and it also covers the house while it's being listed, and it can all be paid for at closing. But we have these in-house. We have these in-house we can give to you. This actually gets produced once they're made, once that warranty is purchased, okay?
Thank you.
So let us know. Dave, what exactly is a mold warranty? For any type of mold, new mold growth that would happen after the inspection, for whatever reason, there's coverage because everybody's scared of mold these days, so we just take it out of the equation. Now, if we find mold on an inspection, it will not cover that mold, obviously. But any type of new mold growth that would happen after the inspection date, it has coverage for that. So I hope that answers your question. All right. How a house works. It's very complicated. Very complicated in the fact that when we inspect a home, we inspect about 350 at minimal items we're looking at. That is a lot, okay? So when it looks like we're on an inspection and we're busy looking at stuff, we really are busy. There's a lot of stuff to look at. And if you're not trained properly, you can miss stuff just because you're distracted by the clients, by the agent, maybe by a dog, seller, whatever the case may be. It happens. It's part of this business. So it's very important that we stay focused. So the things we're going to talk about today in general sense is roofs, drainage systems, grading, chimneys and vents, what they are, what they do. We're going to talk a little bit about electrical. We're going to talk about air conditioning, the two different components that are part of an air conditioning. Some may not even have known that there's another, second part of a central air system. Plumbing, we're going to talk about how plumbing works. Fireplaces, what different type of fireplaces are out there. Attics, we're going to talk about ventilation and insulation. And then foundation and drainage systems, we're going to touch on, types of foundations we have and the types of drainage systems we have. And then we're going to talk a little bit about heating, the distribution ductwork, the heating furnace components itself, and some other heating devices. So let's get started. The roof system. The basic purpose of a roof, obviously, is to provide protection to a person inside a structure for the elements. So we have roof covering. That would include the shingles, the tile, whatever the case may be, right? The sheathing, which are the boards underneath the material you're seeing outside. And then there's the roof structure, which are the framing components that hold up the sheathing and the roof. And then there's flashings. Flashings are metal usually. Some of them are plastic. But in essence, flashing keeps all roof penetrations watertight. And when roofs leak, 9 out of 10 times, where do they leak? Around the flashings. So flashings are very important. And then drainage, of course, your roof gutter systems, and then your grading. That's what we're going to just kind of touch on. So if you have your anatomy of the roof, this is kind of a show and tell type thing, okay? So you have your roof shingles, which are here, obviously. And then you have your sheathing, which is underneath, and then the framing. That's your structure, the trusses, the rafters, okay? Two different types. Rafters are usually older construction, where trusses are newer construction. They use less wood, and they're engineered to hold just as much as rafters. Now, flashings we talked about are at the base of each chimney or whatever roof penetration there is. And those are big items. A lot of times the flashings are done wrong, or people tar them, and you don't tar flashings. If it's installed properly, tarring is not needed, okay? If there is tar up there or additional sealing, that usually means that somebody was up there trying to fix something. Skylights. Skylights are problematic. That's just the easy way of saying it. Even if you were to buy a home warranty, and if your home warranty is not through us, first of all, the roof isn't covered unless you buy a rider. But if you do have coverage, it will not cover skylights. And the reason why home warranty companies do not cover skylights is because they leak over time. So that needs to be understood. These are very vulnerable. Okay, now some skylight installations are better than others. But all in all, if you have a skylight in your home, it's something to always keep your eye on, okay? The only skylights that I have not seen leak were the little cylinder type skylights.
Solar tubes. Solar tubes.
Solar tubes, Christy,
yes.
You're on top of it. Solar tubes. Those I never see those leak. And they're awesome. We have valleys on the roof. Valley is where the two roofs come together, and it actually directs the water off the roof. You can have metal valleys. You can have composite shingle valleys. Let's see here. Ridge or venting, we have gable vents for your attic ventilation, and sometimes there's a ridge vent at the top. That's where your ridge vent would be. Downspouts, obviously, directing water away from the home. We want to extend them at least 6 feet away from the house, and you want all of the gutters to be pitched properly towards the downspouts. That's the way to do it. Chimney, you have a chimney cap. Your flue is inside the chimney, and we're going to talk about chimneys a little bit more later. But the flue is beyond the scope of any home inspection, okay, because we can't see it. They call that a level 1 inspection, where we just visually look at it. A level 2 inspection would include a camera. Chimneys can be expensive, so if you have a masonry fireplace and it's an older house, it's not a bad idea to have a level 2 inspection on it. So does that all make sense? We didn't cover every bullet item. I just wanted to show up the basic stuff. So, all right. Grading. There are two types of grading, positive and negative. Positive grading is good. Negative grading is bad. Fire good, fire bad. Positive grading obviously slopes water away from the home, directing stormwater away from the foundation. That's what we want, okay? Negative grading slopes water towards the home, all right? Directs water towards the house, which can create foundation problems structurally and seepage. So this is your number one defense against water in your basement, and it comes up probably on most home inspections that we go into. We at least talk about it a little bit, because grading hardly ever is perfect. So for every 1 foot away from the house, the grading should go down about 1 inch. So when rain falls, it flows away. That's simple. Gutters should be directed towards or pitched towards the downspouts, and the downspouts should be extended at least 6 feet away from the house. Very, very important. It's a maintenance issue that people forget about, and they don't usually repair or maintain it unless there's a problem. Chimneys and vents. Now, this is a chimney, okay? It's a masonry chimney, and this is a vent. This vent is most likely for a water heater. This is for 1 or maybe 2 fireplaces, okay? Each fireplace has to have its own flue. You can't share flues between fireplaces, all right? And being that this is a masonry chimney, it'll have its own footing, and I'll get into that in a little bit. But essentially, the chimney's function is to produce the draft that draws combustion air from the appliances and safely exhausts the combustion gas to the exterior. So I'm sure you've seen in the past or have experienced on some sort of home inspection, maybe even your own house, that maybe your water heater is backdrafting and there's some evidence of some melted caps on top of your water heater. And it's because this vent can be very long, and it can turn and twist throughout your house until it gets into your water heater. And the more twists it has, the more turns it has, the harder it is for it to draft properly. And it's easier for the air to get down through the water heater as opposed to going up and out. And it can be very difficult to correct. That's why a lot of people will get the mechanical direct vent water heaters when these go bad. But to identify what it is, this is a vent. It's not a chimney. This is a chimney, okay? And when you do have things that are burning in your house and drafting properly, it is pulling air from outside for combustion. It has to come from somewhere, okay? Whether you have a window open, that's fine in summer, but in winter, everything's closed. So if you have enough things drafting, it may actually affect the draft because of the pressure in the home is under negative pressure, and the gases want to come into the house as opposed to going up and out of the chimney. And how do you fix that? Just open the door. Open the door and it'll allow air to get into your house. You need proper air exchange. Newer homes, it's more of a problem than with older homes because they're tighter. Older homes, they leak. It's just the way it is. It's not a bad thing. It's just they're not as tight and they don't have the problems that newer homes have. So, but that's how it works. Drafts the gases up and out, and it pulls air from outside to get into your house. Now, sometimes when it gets really bad, you need like an HRV, which is like a heat recovery ventilator. And that actually pulls air from outside to properly circulate the air in your house. You want good air exchange in your home, and that'll eliminate these issues. Electrical. Your inspector will identify different types of electrical. Like this is an overhead electrical service. All right, it comes up on your roof. A lot of times, inspector is going to look at this flashing. We talked about flashing earlier. This is flashing. All right, this is very difficult to replace. If you have a roof that's replaced, they 9 out of 10 times will not replace this. Any idea why? It's because they have to disconnect power. And nobody wants to do that. You have to contact we energies, and it's kind of a big deal. So they end up just keeping this, and it gets quite old over time. So it's something a home inspector is going to look in this area. It's kind of a vulnerable area. But we're also going to look at how these wires are. Are they deteriorated? Are they taped? Are there any exposed elements on there? And then we follow it to the trees or to the pole to make sure trees aren't chafing on the wires. So that's what we look at. This is an overhead electrical service. These are underground. Obviously no wires. And the panel box is the meter socket. So this being rectangle, you usually have 150 amps or maybe 200. This being rectangle, same thing. If you have square, it usually means that you have 100 amps. And if you have round, it usually means 60. So service drop above ground or below ground is connected to the meter box, which calculates how much energy your home uses and communicates to your local power company. And that's how you get billed. So plain and simple, that's what we have, the two different types of electrical service going to your house. Anybody know what this is?
Is that a sub panel of some sort?
No.
It's a mast.
No. Many houses these days don't have it.
For the phone?
Yep.
Oh, Lordy.
Phone. Somebody, Tamara got it too. Yep. All right. Electrical interior. Talk about that stuff. The interior electrical power system is a network of electrical components deployed to supply, transfer, or use electrical power. So we have 2-prong outlets, right? And then we have 3-prong outlets. The difference between the two is that this has a ground. This is the safe way of doing business now these days. This is old and obsolete. It'll work, but there is no ground. So it presents more of a safety hazard to use than this outlet, okay? GFCI outlets, AFCI outlets. GFCI outlets is a ground fault circuit interrupter. This type of outlet should be anywhere within, well, near water. Let's leave it at that. And that includes exterior, garages, basements, kitchens, bathrooms, anywhere water is, this outlet should be there. And what it does is it monitors the electricity or the voltage, okay? So there's a certain amount of voltage coming into the outlet, and if the same amount of voltage isn't coming out of the outlet, this will trigger because it senses that it's going somewhere else, which could be essentially through your body, and it'll save your life. That's why we have these outlets. These outlets should also be cycled monthly, because if they don't get operated often, when they do cycle for whatever reason, they may not reset, okay? You can also get this type of outlet or circuit in a breaker, okay? And the breaker can control many outlets, okay? So you don't have to necessarily have these little buttons on every single outlet to make it GFCI protected. However, if you have an outlet like this that is being controlled by a GFCI breaker, you should have a little sticker that says GFCI protected. Now, AFCIs, we have breakers. You won't find AFCI tripping mechanisms on an outlet. They're usually breakers. The AFCI is an arc fault circuit interrupter. That type of outlet is in all of your other outlets, bedrooms, okay, living rooms, and it just controls again, monitors the electricity, but it prevents arcing. It senses that it arcs. Instead of sensing that it's electrocuting somebody like a GFCI outlet, it'll sense that it's arcing, which could ultimately cause a fire, and it'll trip. These outlets, home inspectors will not operate, okay? And the reason why we don't operate them is because you may have computers hooked up to them. And we don't want to turn anything off that would be a problem for the seller. So normal day outlets, if it's an AFCI outlet, we will not trip them. If it is a GFCI outlet, the inspector has to trip them. That's part of our standards. Okay. Those are the difference. I got a couple questions. GFCI stands for ground fault circuit interrupter. Oh, somebody answered it. Christy, you're on fire. Now, another no grounded system is knob and tube wiring. We see this in a lot of old houses, and 9 out of 10 times, I should almost say 10 out of 10 times, it needs to be removed because it's just old wiring. And it shouldn't be covered with any type of insulation. It also, if we find it, usually is spliced, and it shouldn't be spliced. And it's just unsafe. It doesn't have a ground. Just like the 2-prong outlet here, it doesn't have a ground and therefore should be updated. Most insurance companies, if they know about it, will not insure a house with this type of wiring in it. And then, of course, your handyman wiring here, which home inspectors will red flag. So basic electrical interior, that's kind of what we're looking at. Now, electrical main panel. The main circuit breaker panel is essentially a big switch that safely distributes the supply of power to your house. The circuit breaker box also houses other small sub switches that connect with specific areas of the house. These small switches are called circuit breakers right here. Told you, it's very basic. These small switches, again, are called circuit breakers, and their function is to essentially monitor the electricity as well, okay? So if this wire is pulling too much power, that breaker is going to trip, okay? And why would it pull too much power? It's because there's a short somewhere. Wires are touching themselves or touching something else, and it's not getting grounded properly, and it senses that there's an overload, and it turns it off. So 9 out of 10 times you get, annoyed with it, but it's telling you something. It's trying to tell you that something's not working right. So main panel breakers here, circuit breakers are here. And that's why every breaker size should have an appropriate wire size as well, okay? Like a 15 amp breaker will have a 14 gauge wire on it. And inspectors do look for that, okay? Because you don't want the wire burning up and the breaker still doesn't say too much power is going through. So you have to have the appropriate size wire for the appropriate size breaker. Also, I might mention, if a breaker goes bad, you can't just go in there and replace the breaker with something at Home Depot. You have to have an appropriate breaker that is approved for that panel. And so you should consult an electrician when something like that happens. And we see that all the time. People use all different types of breakers. This is also another main panel. This one's actually nice and new. See how all the wires are bent very nicely? That's an electrician that has pride in their work. Some boxes you pull off and it's just a nest of wires, and that's kind of a red flag that something's not right. This is an older one. This actually is a full panel. They can't even add any more circuits. And you see here, it may not be here. I can't see that great on this picture, but when people run out of room in their panels, they'll get piggyback breakers. So they can put 2 breakers on the size of 1 breaker. You can do that if you don't have a ton of them going on in there, because again, every panel is designed to have only so many breakers, and every panel should have breakers that are appropriate for that panel. So again, consult your electrician. But ultimately, when this panel is full, you might want to think about putting in a sub panel. And I'll get to sub panels in a minute. Fuses, no brainer. Nobody likes them anymore. They should be updated. Not to mention, it's below minimal standards. This is usually confirms a 60 amp service. The reason why nobody likes them anymore is because if something pops or breaks, maybe a fuse blows, the tenant, whoever the case, somebody who doesn't know anything about electricity, they're just annoyed with it breaking or popping, so they put a larger one in. And now you're overfused, and that can cause a fire. That's a reason. Or maybe even some people put pennies in there and they never pop them. And then that's a good way to burn your house down. Now, sub panels, again, if you have a full panel here, you add in a sub panel. All right. That gives you a little bit more room. Full panel here, sub panel here. Now, 9 out of 10 times when we see these installed, they're installed wrong. I don't know why people think they can play with electricity, but they usually install them wrong. And how they do that and how a home inspector knows it's installed wrong is when you hook up a panel, you're going to have copper wires for your ground. You're going to have white wires for your neutral. And they need to be separated, okay? So the whites need to be here, grounds need to be here. This is your main panel. See how you have them connected here? And there's white and there's copper. You can do that on your main panel, but you can't do it on a sub panel. They have to have their own individual path back to the main panel. And so when I open up an electrical sub panel and I see right away that they're connected on the same bus bar, show's over. Needs to be looked at. Something's not right here. There's some homeowner installation. The reason why they have to be separated, and it's interesting enough because even a lot of home inspectors don't know this. The reason why they're not, or they need to be separated, is because if there is a short, it's going to try to find ground. And before it finds ground, because the grounds and neutrals are together, it's going to go through every light fixture in your house and blow them before it finds ground if there's a problem. So real simple, neutrals, grounds, that's whites, coppers need to be separate. Air conditioning. This is a split system, okay? Most air conditioning systems in this area are split systems. And what that means is the compressor is outside and the evaporator coil is inside. And we'll show you what that is first, or we'll show you what that is second, rather. But the central air conditioners circulate cool air through a system of supply and return ducts. Supply ducts and registers, which are the openings in the walls, floors, or ceilings covered by grills, carry conditioned air to and from the air conditioner to the home. You see in this particular picture here, your central air system, the compressor is out here. They usually last between 15 and 20 years on the average. You know, they can last many more. But you should have a little shutoff box here, which there is, okay? And then you should have refrigerant lines that actually connect to the interior component, which we'll get to in a second. But the cool air goes through rigid insulation and through ducts that may be flexed, okay? This type of ductwork, by the way, or registers, should not be in a garage because it breaches your fire rating, okay? Now, that's an attached garage, that is. There should be a firewall between the house and the garage. And I've seen, actually, I just saw it this week. They had registers in the ceiling because they wanted to heat and cool their garage. Well, that's a no-no, because now if you had a fire in your garage for whatever reason, it's going to easily spread through the ductwork into the house. And that's why you can't have that stuff. But again, we have rigid and then we have flex. If it isn't a controlled, non-conditioned space, it should be insulated. Oh. All right, your other half of your central air system is in your furnace, whether you knew that or not. So this is your furnace, and it's right above the furnace. This is where the refrigerant lines connect to the other unit. You have a low pressure line and you have a high pressure line. And this is called an evaporator coil. And it looks just like this, but it's inside, which basically means that we can't see it. Home inspectors cannot see it. They can only run the AC and look for evidence of problems, such as frost, maybe leaking. But this unit will produce condensation, and it sits in a tray in this plenum area. And then it'll drain the condensation out through the condensation lines here, okay? So 2 parts of a central air system. And, you know, we in our reports, we try to estimate the age on both of them because you don't have to replace one, or you don't have to replace both when something goes bad. Probably not a bad idea, but that's more money, of course. And we'll get to furnaces in a minute. So this is the big picture. Compressor outside, You have your shutoff. You have your pad that it sits on because it should be straight. You don't want it crooked. It pulls in air from the sides, pushes it out on top. That's why it should have a good clearance around it. You don't want it sitting underneath a deck. You don't want it covered with all sorts of foliage or debris. You want it to breathe. And then the refrigerant lines we talk about connected to the A coil or the evaporator coil inside the house. Split system. And the furnace blower pushes the air out. Plumbing. Plumbing uses pipes, valves, plumbing fixtures, tanks, and other apparatuses to convey fluids and or fuels. Yes, fuel. Gas lines are part of plumbing, okay? Heating and cooling, or HVAC, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, waste removal, and potable water delivery are among the most common uses for plumbing, obviously, but it is not limited to these applications. So you have your copper supply lines, right? That allows water to get to all the components that you need. Copper is a good product. Older products are like galvanized. These have about an 80-year lifespan. So you have a house that has galvanized plumbing, and the house may be 80, 90 years old. You know, that's something the client might want to budget for. They actually start clogging up like your arteries. So a pipe that's this big over time might become this big. So you can tell that usually from water flow from your sinks or toilets or showers. And then this is the modern installation PEX, which is a good product as well. That's what you're going to see in new construction. But these are water supply lines, okay? Takes the water from the main water meter and disperses it throughout your house to the fixtures in your sinks, bathrooms, toilets, what have you. Another thing I might mention, when you do change pipes, say for instance, this pipe is bad, we need to replace it. It's not recommended to have this galvanized touch this copper. They call that dissimilar metal. And that can create, it actually promotes corrosion. There should be what they call a dielectric fitting between the two, which has a gasket in it, the fitting, and keeps that contact separate. You don't see it much, but you'll see that at water heaters. I see that quite a bit at water heaters, but not elsewhere. Gas lines. We have rigid insulation, which is, rigid black iron pipe, which is this right here. That's in most installations, okay? And then you have this flex yellow stuff. This is called CSST, and it's called corrugated stainless steel tubing, all right? And we see this is also in my house. Inspectors will call this out all the time because it doesn't have this on it, and that's a grounding wire or bonding wire. You have to have this material bonded. If you don't, it's a safety hazard in the event of a lightning strike. So if you were to Google CSST lightning strike, you're going to find all sorts of information on it. The problem is it's never bonded or grounded. And so it comes up quite often, and then people are like, well, what do we do? Do we have somebody come bond it, ground it? Let me tell you, I have it in my house and I haven't done anything with it. So it's something to know about. You may want to get around to doing it, but it is what it is, right? Now, the reason I put this black flex pipe in here is because this is a track pipe. It's kind of like the CSST. And this is in newer installations as well. This pipe does not need to be grounded. Okay? So track pipe, CSST, black iron. Plumbing drains. When we look underneath the sink, we want to see this. This is called a P-trap. Why? Because it's shaped as a P. No brainer, right? You may or may not know what the purpose of this P-trap is, but what it does is it keeps water in the drain and it keeps the sewer gases from entering up through the sink. I'll tell you a little story. I was actually training home inspectors. I think it was in Seattle. I was there for a weekend, and we went into a house, and the whole house smelled like rotten eggs. This was like 9 a.m. We got in there. It was like, I mean, it hit you like a ton of bricks. And I'm like, oh my God, you know, and she's like, yeah, we have a little bit of a gas problem. I'm like, whoa, you think? In any event, I went and got my gas detector out of my truck, and I put the gas detector down one of the sink drains, and it went, it was going crazy. Methane gas was coming up through the drains, all of them. And the reason why they were all coming up through the drains is because they all had S-traps. This S-trap, when you run water, it does not keep this sealed. It'll pull all the water out because there is no vent in this pipe. Every plumbing piece has to have every drain, I should say, should have a vent to it. And I'll explain what the vent is in a minute. But without this trap sealed with water, the gases can work their way up. And so this is an improper trap. And it's an indication not only because it's an S-trap, but it shows that it's not vented properly. And you want proper venting. I can give you the scenario here. You take a straw and you put it into a can of soda, and you put your finger over the top of the straw, and you lift the straw, and there's soda in the straw. If you take a pinhole or pin and puncture the straw, all of a sudden, all of the water or soda will come out of the pipe or out of the straw. That's your vent. That's why you have to have a vent near all of your drains. And even though you don't see it, your toilet has the same thing. It has a P-trap into it. Okay? So very important that your drains have P-traps, not S-traps. All of your plumbing through venting will then go out your stack at the top of the roof. This is a plumbing vent. So you have your laundry here, sink here, toilet here. You may even have a drain in your basement. All gets connected to a vent that goes up through your roof and provides the proper drainage. Very important. Sometimes we go into houses and that plumbing vent, I just was on one last week, and I got on the roof and I touched this plumbing vent and I could lift it right out of the roof. And I'm like, well, that's not good. But that's the type of stuff we find. If you're on our Facebook page, you might even see it because we post a lot of that crazy stuff. But that's how the plumbing system works. Now, we also have some other plumbing things. We have a sub pump crock, which we'll get to in a little bit. Everybody's probably somewhat familiar with sub pump crocks. But you also have sanitary crocks. Sub pump crocks control storm water. Okay, water that comes from outside. A sanitary crock controls gray water and sewer water. All right, that's why this is sealed. If it's not sealed, you're going to get an odor. It's going to stink. All right, so you have a drain. One of these pipes is a drain, okay, because what happens is the crock will fill up just like a sub pump, and the pump will turn on and discharge the water up and out. It'll have a check valve on it, and then the other pipe is a vent. We want that vent. And these should be sealed. You don't always see them sealed. And then this guy, we do see these occasionally. These are kind of fun. This is a miniature sub pump crock. And it is because this is like in a wet bar, and they don't want to run the plumbing or maybe dig into the floor to run water underneath so that it can drain on an angle. They want to pump it up and out. It's the easiest way to install it without having to, I guess, rip up your basement floor. So occasionally you find these, and all we do is run the water, and after a while you're going to hear it kick on and discharge the water. Same thing with this. A lot of times your laundry sinks will go into here, and you'll hear it fill up, and you'll hear the pump come on, and that's how you verify it's working. And the reason, again, you have to have this is because my next slide will show you. This is your main sewer line. Whether it's a septic tank, whether it's a sewer system, it doesn't matter. 9 out of 10 times, though, it will be a septic tank. Look how high your drainage line is here. This is your main drain, waste, and ventilation pipe. How's this water going to get here? How's this water going to get here? How's this water going to get here? It's below that. It's got to be pumped up. And that's why you have a sanitary crock. Not all houses have them. A lot of people will get confused. Is this a sub pump crock or is this a sanitary crock? Well, remember, 9 out of 10 times, you're going to have a sanitary crock that's sealed, and it'll have 2 pipes coming out of it, where sub pump will have 1. And 9 out of 10 times, it's not sealed unless there's a radon mitigation system put in. Then it will seal it. Fun stuff, huh? All right, wells and pressure tanks. The well itself is not part of an inspection, okay? Home inspectors will not look at that. But we do our due diligence, and we will operate the water, and we'll see right here at this pressure gauge, we'll see the pressure gauge go down, and then we'll hear the pump kick on, and the gauge will go back up. That's telling me that the pump is working, okay? The pump usually will turn on at about 20 and turn off at 40, or it'll turn on at 30 and turn off at 50. There's a 20 PSI difference there. Sometimes it'll turn on at 40, turn off at 60, all right? Normally it's lower pressure than city water though. So your pump, when the pressure is low, your pump will then kick on and replenish your pressure tank. Because the last thing you want is your pump to kick on every time there's a demand for water. So if I go to my kitchen sink, turn on my sink, and the pump kicks on, and I turn it off, the pump stops, and then I go to the bathroom, turn that sink on, and the pump comes on, that's no good. That'll burn out your pump. The pressure tank builds that water up in here with the right pressure, and then once you use enough water, this water will then diminish in the tank, and then at a certain PSI, it'll replenish. So it's not turning on and off every time there's a demand for water. By the way, this electrical here, this is non-metallic cable. This should be in conduit like that as well. I got a question. Can you send me the email to get a copy of this presentation? Sure. Client care. I'll put it in here. How's that? Client. There you go. So that's how that works. So what happens inside a tank? That's a good thing. You got too many calls. What happens in a tank? Here we go. The water will diminish in the tank, pressure tank, and then when it hits a certain PSI, the pump turns on and it replenishes it. When there is a demand, when the pump comes on, every time there's a demand for water, that means your tank is waterlogged. It's completely filled with water. And that happens occasionally if you have an older system where all of the water will sooner or later absorb the air in the tank. And every time you turn the water on, the pump will kick on. And that should be serviced. It's not a big deal to service it. Something that happens every now and then on an older system. And when I say older system, it's usually one of these. These usually have a bladder in them. And what I mean by bladder is they have a rubber bladder that separates the two. So the air essentially can't escape into the water. And this just is the anatomy of it. You got a pressure switch, pressure gauge. This is a sample valve that you test your water. And then this goes to a pump that's buried underneath the ground. But the normal PSI is about 40 to 60. Fireplace. Upper left, we have a prefab. What do I mean by prefab? It means it doesn't have its own foundation. That's simple. It's sitting on wood, okay? Usually sealed. These are the type of ones that you can just turn a switch on a wall and all of a sudden, boom, comes on. Those are my favorite. The one over here is a masonry fireplace. This has its own footing and it'll have a clean out just like this in the basement or outside. All right. This is a lot of weight. And it has a clean out because usually there's an ash pit where people can dump ashes and it goes down into the basement and people can clean out this in a basement atmosphere as opposed to a living room where it can get kind of dirty. Wood burners. 9 out of 10 times people put their own wood burners in and they're unsafe. They're dirty. Nobody cleans them. I see that more than anything. These are very intricate in the fact they have specific manufacturer instructions on how these should be installed. And they're all a little different. It's not like a black and white. You should see this, I should see this. They're all a little different. So whenever I see a wood burner stove, it's always, first of all, to find out that we have permits pulled for it. If there are no permits pulled for it or found, I'd have somebody look at it just to make sure it's installed right, because some clearances you can't even see because it's installed already. Like for instance, the flue pipe that goes up into the wall, they have a big plate on it that we can't see what's in the wall or what the clearances are. So if installed wrong, they can be very unsafe. There's one thing I don't have in here, and that's a fireplace insert. And a fireplace insert is usually used in a masonry fireplace like this. By the way, masonry fireplaces are very inefficient. Most of the heat goes up and out the chimney. A fireplace insert is a big device that gets stuck, installed, however you want to say it, into the fireplace. And it connects with the flue, and it basically makes it more efficient. The problem is we can't see anything with that insert being installed. The proper way to inspect it would be to remove the insert and have it re-inspected. The second problem is they're usually filthy. Nobody ever does that to clean it. And you can tell you have an insert because you'll have a door on it with like a big crank. And that'll be on your fireplace. Kind of like this here, but it'll be here. And it'll usually have a cord that you can plug into an outlet for a fan. So those we see, we just can't properly inspect them. David, have you ever seen jacks in the basement to support the weight of a masonry fireplace? Is this a good or bad? I've never seen that. I mean, a foundation, I mean, it's all concrete. It's very heavy. Saw this in a listing appointment in a few weeks. I'd have to look at it to see. I mean, if it's a turnbuckle cranks, I would find that as a substandard installation, and I might recommend further evaluation on that because you shouldn't need that. So this is the anatomy of a fireplace and what we can see. When we look at a fireplace, we're going to look at the hearth. It's got to be a certain size. We're going to look at the mantle, the lintel, make sure there's no sagging going on. And then we're going to open up the damper. We're going to look up into the smoke shelf and smoke chamber as best as we can. But essentially, this is about all we can see. That's why we can't represent anything that's in the flue. And if you have a fireplace with a tile flue, you don't want to have any cracks. Hairline cracks are bad. A crack that's a hairline crack, if you have a fire, it can open up to be 1 inch when it's hot. So occasionally I stick my head up, even though we're not obligated to look at the flue, I still look to see what's up there. And if I see something obvious, then it's more of a safety concern, and I'll talk about that. But flues, you don't want any type of cracks. It's bad news. And a fireplace flue cannot, again, be shared with any other device. If you go into an old 50s house, somewhere around there, and you have a furnace going up the chimney out in the basement, and then somebody put in a wood burner or some sort of incinerator in the basement, and they're using the same flue, that's a no-no. You can't have that. No, it's a safety hazard. What is the significance of having a mantle when inspecting? You're just looking at if it's too low and if it's solid. That's it. You don't have to have a mantle. Another thing we find is people put outlets up here and they just install an outlet and it's horizontal. So if you dump a soda on it, you're going to have a problem. But that's all we're looking at for there. The hearth size has to be appropriate size for the size opening of the fireplace. So a lot of times we go in and they've done something with the hearth and it's too small. So if a spark comes out, it could burn something. Attic. Attics are generally used for storage, not new construction though, okay? Though their main purpose is to help control temperatures in a house by providing a large mass of slowly moving air, okay? So this is how it works. In a perfect world, okay? Air coming in your soffit vents here, and they go out a ridge vent. You got to have a 50-50 split here. You can also have a top vent. You can't have a top vent and a ridge vent. That's not good. You want one or the other, okay? If you have a ridge vent and you don't have a soffit vent because insulation is packed in here, it's like doing this. What am I doing? I'm clapping. It doesn't work. If you put both of them together, it works. But if I take one away, it doesn't work. That's just how it is. So you got to have a 50-50 split. And if you have a finished attic like Cape Cods, you have to properly vent this as well. A lot of Cape Cods are not vented properly. You have to have these air baffles in here so you can cram insulation and it's not going to close the ventilation gap. This is how it should be done for a knee wall attic. Most times it is not. If you don't have the proper ventilation, you'll have moisture in your attic. And what comes with moisture, boys and girls?
Mold.
Yes, mold. Ventilation is important. Also insulation. Right now you want to have at least an R38, which is about, well, depending on the type of insulation, which is about this much, 16 inches or so. A lot of houses are deficient on insulation. So the combination of poor insulation, poor ventilation can make your attic not look good. Foundations. Purpose of a foundation is to hold up and hold together the structure above it. Pretty cut and dry. We have poured foundations, we have block foundations, we have stone foundations, we have brick foundations. Which one's the best?
Poured.
That's the one I'd want. Very few problems we find with poured. You'll see some cracks that may need some epoxy sealing or maybe some honeycombing. That's a whole different presentation. I actually have a presentation on foundation and drainage systems. Did it probably maybe a month and a half ago. It'll make its cycle again soon. Block basements, of course, notorious for needing some repair down the road. They move, hydrostatic pressure, shear cracks, moisture, of course. Then you have your stone foundations. These are your older houses. You know, they're going to leak. We go into a house that's built in the turn of the century, has a stone foundation, field stone foundation. You know, I tell them you should anticipate seasonal dampness and seepage. These were built for a different reason than they are now, okay? So most people understand that who are buying these types of houses. So it's usually not that big of a deal. But because this type of foundation, this old foundation doesn't, you know, have any drain tile, you're relying 100% on your grading and gutters to direct water away from the house. So if you do have some serious seepage issues, it's kind of just go outside and take a look, see what's going on. Maybe your grading's really negative. And then you have brick foundations, which are in a lot of basements, bungalows, 100-plus-year-old houses. They have the tuck pointing. These we find issues with as well. They're very large, though. I mean, they can be this thick because they may be separated by an air gap for insulation. But these may be a challenge for some people, some basement professionals to fix. just because of what it is. The bricks may not match. The mortar may not take. Sometimes they need to be rebuilt. I don't see a whole lot of issues. I mean, I see general movement and things like that. But if I had to compare all four of these, this is probably the one that probably ends up getting the most attention, just for the simple fact, well, the most of them are here. And two, people who are buying houses with block basements are wanting a dry basement. They're not anticipating seasonal dampness and seepage. You know, they want to finish it and do things like that. So that's why this one gets all the attention. Now, drainage systems, we'll touch a little bit on that too. Foundation drainage is buried drainage system installed at the foundation and near the wall footings, covered with a layer of gravel, right here, okay, serving the purpose of draining out excessive water seepage into the foundation. So we talked way earlier in this presentation that gutters and grading is your number one defense against water in your basement. Well, this is your second defense, okay? And it's your drain tile. There's exterior drain tile, there's bleeders that drain it to the interior drain tile, and then the water will then get directed to a sub pump crock, or in middle-aged homes, a Palmer valve, which looks like this. All right, and the difference between the two is years ago, they allowed you to combine your storm sewer and sanitary sewer. All right, so the water that would come through this system or come from underneath the ground would collect in your drain tile and go down your sewer. That's a combined sanitary and storm sewer. Nowadays, they don't allow that, okay? They want the water that comes from outside, such as stormwater, to go back outside. So instead of going down your sewer, they want it to go to a sub pump crock like this. So when it fills up, it gets pumped up back outside. The purpose of the Palmer valve, which looks like this in all actuality, this is the schematic for it, is the water from your drain tile pushes this valve open. The water goes down your sewer. The valve closes back up. So if your sewer were to back up, it's not going to contaminate or clog your drain tile system. That's the purpose of a Palmer valve. And Palmer valves are a Milwaukee thing, all right? You go to other parts of the state, you're not going to find them. It's a Milwaukee thing. Another thing is 9 out of 10 times, because it is a passive valve, it rusts closed because it's going to sit in this position for years and years and years. And that's why your home inspector will stick his hand down here and try to operate that valve. If he can't operate it, he recommends that it be fixed. If it's missing, that means that somebody tore it off trying to repair the valve. And therefore, you're susceptible to sewer backup going into your drain tile if your sewer were to back up. Also, you're out of compliance without this valve. And any Palmer valve that is missing, it is recommended that this be sealed properly and a sub pump be installed into the modern system. These cannot be fixed. They're retroed in, grandfathered in, however you want to say it, until they break. And then this system is recommended. You cannot have both systems working. Okay? By the way, this is a gravity-fed system. All the water goes by gravity. Heating systems, okay, we're winding down here. Heating systems raise the temperature of an enclosed space for the primary purpose of ensuring the comfort of the occupants. By regulating the ambient temperature, heating also serves to maintain a building structure, mechanical and electrical systems. So we have different types of heating systems that we find in this area. First, we have your forced air system. All right, and remember this, we have our 8 coil in here, evaporator coil, these are refrigerant lines. But your furnace here lasts about 15 to 20 years. If you have an older system, usually it's inefficient. If you have a furnace that is using PVC pipe for an exhaust, it's high efficiency furnace. If you're using metal for a vent pipe, it's a mid efficiency furnace. And that's just the way it goes. Your furnace filter is right here. The furnace filter works for cooling and for heating. And there's an arrow on the filter that should always be facing towards the furnace. So the air comes down here and goes this way. This rubber here just prevents all of the rigid ductwork from vibrating when the blower's on. But we probably find these in most areas in this, and we find these most in this area. You do have boilers. Boilers, believe it or not, people are usually scared of boilers because they don't know much about them. This is actually easier to take care of than this guy because you don't have to do anything. You don't have to change any filters or anything like that. They last double the time of this type of furnace heating device, but they're double the cost usually to repair or replace. Inspectors, how do we inspect it? We operate it. There's a pressure gauge. There's a temperature gauge. A couple other things such as a pressure relief valve we're looking at, leaking pipes, making sure all the registers or heating sources work. We're also looking to make sure there's a heating device in every livable room, okay? If there's a room that doesn't have a heating space or heating device, it is not really considered a living space. It has to have a heating device. That is opposed to a cooling device. You don't have to have a cooling device in the home, but you have to have a heating device, okay? And then you have your electrical heating devices. You cannot have outlets over your electrical devices. If I see this definitely tells me that whoever put this in did not do it right, or maybe didn't pull a permit, maybe didn't know everything about electrical, but something should be done because you have an extension cord that would sit over this then and could burn up. Now, if you have a radiator such as this and it's supplying a convector, then you can have a heating device. That's not a problem, but not electrical. And that's it. Did I miss anything? Okay, as we always say, be successful and be around those who are successful. You can always equate yourself to the most people you hang around with, the first 5 people you find yourself hanging with. I'm going to turn my screen off. I got one question here, a chat. Oh, it says, thank you so much. Thank you for attending. Next week, we'll have another one. So get ready for that. If you have any questions in the meantime, feel free to reach out to us. We're here to help no matter what it may be. And have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Thanks for
You
attending.
too.
Thank you.